Welcome to our February 2020 webinar from ACU Idea Lab, and Happy New Year, everyone. We're grateful you're able to join us today, most likely on your lunch break at work, to learn from our amazing instructors. These webinars will be recorded and available on our Idea Lab YouTube site, which will be emailed to you at the conclusion of today's session. On our main website, acuidealab.com, you can also learn more about what we do for professional development. If you'd like more information on our online degree programs, please visit acu.edu/online. All of our online degree programs are designed for working professionals like yourself. Today, we will hear from Dr. Brian Cole and Professor Jerica Nickerson, who I'll introduce momentarily. I am Noelle Iwan, and I'm your host this afternoon. You will notice that all participants are muted and hidden, but there will be opportunities to participate in today's session using different functions found at the bottom of your Zoom window. Please use the chat for general questions, comments, and intros for Idea Lab. And if you have specific questions for our presenters today, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom. Let's all begin using the chat with everyone sharing their first name and the city and state they're joining from. Here is today's agenda. Dr. Cole's presentation is Optimizing Mentoring Relationships with guest ACU Online EDD student Jerica Nickerson. I will close this out no later than 12:45 with some next step items, and we welcome anyone who'd like to stay after with a Q&A with our presenters. During this webinar, you will have a better understanding of the nature and characteristics of mentorship. You'll have a better understanding of the personal and organizational benefits of mentorship, particularly within organizational settings, and a better understanding of ways to be an effective mentor and mentee. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenters sharing some of their expertise with us today. I'll start with our guest student, Jerica Nickerson, earned a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology from the University of Houston, Maine, a Master's of Science in Communication from Texas Southern University, and is currently pursuing an EDD in Organizational Leadership with a focus in higher education from Abilene Christian University Online. She began teaching as an adjunct faculty member at Houston Community College and currently serves as department chair and professor at Lone Star College in Houston, Texas. Upon completion of her doctoral degree, she hopes to move up the ladder the old-fashioned way and serve as a dean, vice president of instruction, and maybe president within higher education. Our guest faculty today is Dr. Brian Cole, who is the program director and an associate professor in the EDD and Organizational Leadership program here at ACU Online. Brian started his work at ACU in the spring of 2016, and he earned his PhD in Educational Leadership with a higher education focus from Western Michigan University, where his research centered on the impact of campus culture on student activism within Christian higher education institutions. Prior to his faculty work, Brian spent over a decade in student development positions, culminating in a Dean of Students role. He and his family live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with 2 retired racing greyhounds and 2 polydactyl cats. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Brian Cole and Jerica Nickerson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Jerica, and I'll be kicking things off for us on today. So first, we want to begin by defining mentorship. Now, mentorship is something that we're most likely familiar with, but however, let's go ahead and use a technical definition by Johnson and Ridley. Mentorship is a development tool used to promote growth, share knowledge, provide guidance, motivation, and even emotional support. Now, mentorship does not guarantee success, promotion, or progression. However, there's evidence out there that supports mentorship as being cited as an essential component for individuals' growth and development, both professionally and personally. Within a mentoring relationship, you do have one that is a mentor who is usually experienced, who takes the interest of a less experienced individual who's known as the mentee. Mentors are considered to be effective when they're able to assist with creating opportunities for mentees to build networks, set goals, and navigate their career paths. Effective mentors tend to provide intentional support support, and mentees actively listen and gain the necessary knowledge that will aid in a collaborative effort that pushes mentoring relationships towards outcomes that can be beneficial for everyone involved. Oftentimes, we have a difficulty differentiating between what's a mentor and what's a coach. So to help provide some clarity, I'd like to share a quote from authors Zachary and Fischler. Unlike a teacher or even a coach who is focused on helping us learn and practice a particular set of skills, a mentor acts as a guide who helps us define and understand our goals and pursue them successfully. So when thinking about what does a mentor do, effective mentors, they have to make themselves accessible so that they can help shape new behaviors, offer counsel in challenging times, nurture creativity, provide exposure, but more importantly, reject perfectionism and instead promote excellence.
So we're going to get you involved now, and we have a poll for you to take to see what you know about mentorship. And so the question is, from where did the term mentor originate? Was it A, the Epic of Gilgamesh, an epic poem from ancient Mesopotamia? B, Homer's Odyssey, an epic poem from ancient Greece? C, John of Salisbury's Polycraticus, which is the first book on political science? Or D, Francois Fenelon's book, Les Aventures de Télémaque? Okay, we got some results here, and the most popular answer was B, Homer's Odyssey, and that was actually correct. It was actually a bit of a trick question. I see that others were mentioned, but that's probably because it was a bit of a trick question. But the answer was B, and I'll tell you why. Other than they're connected to mentorship in some way, but B, the term mentor comes from the character's name in the Odyssey, whom Odysseus places in charge of his son Telemachus when Odysseus leaves Ithaca for the Trojan War. In the story, the older man, whose name is Mentor, accompanies Telemachus on the journey to find his father and of self-discovery, with the goddess Athena providing additional guidance on the journey by occasionally taking the form of mentor. So as for the other choices, in the Middle Ages, Francois Fenelon reintroduced the name mentor in his book, translated in English as The Adventures of Telemachus. And this book continues the Odyssey story that was originally written over 25 years earlier. Apparently, Fenelon's book was quite popular at the time, helping the term mentor to span the centuries and eventually enter our modern lexicon. Another choice was the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was actually the first time the idea or metaphor of a mentor was used in literature. This oldest surviving great work of literature features Gilgamesh's Yoda-like mentor, the immortal Utnapishtim, who provides him challenges to attain renewed youth and immortal life. And finally, in the Middle Ages, John of Salisbury wrote Polycraticus and introduced the metaphor of footsteps to represent the idea of mentoring. For the author, mentoring footsteps were often written accounts, allowing the mentee and mentees to follow, to learn from the mentor's past experiences to help illuminate the present and possibly the future. So, certain conceptions of mentoring have been with us since antiquity and still continue today. Mentorship is often understood through metaphors because of the complexity of these relationships. People often use metaphors to think, communicate, and inspire toward action. And metaphors are also related to our emotions. That's true of the metaphors used for mentorship, which certainly reflect the different ways people view mentoring. For example, sometimes people use family metaphors. The most popular ones are either like of a parent and child relationship, or maybe you might see a mentor as a grandparent, aunt, uncle, or an older brother or sister. Some see mentoring as a friendship. And what this might look like is maybe, for example, at a college, an experienced dorm roommate mentoring a new student, or maybe a seasoned parishioner at a church acclimating a new member to the church. Some other popular terms and metaphors used to describe mentors are that of a leader, guide, coach, advisor, sage, teacher, sculptor, or even an angel or fairy godmother have been used. In educational environments, the mentoring relationship is sometimes seen as a plant and gardener. The mentor is the gardener who plants seeds of knowledge or experience, and waters and nurtures and tends to the garden through the relationship, allowing the mentee as the plant or flower to grow, flourish, and become something much more than they were. Of course, there is the metaphor of footsteps, as in to follow in someone's footsteps. I certainly think that this fits with the original footsteps metaphor found in Polycraticus. So as you can see, the idea of mentorship has been with us for centuries, including being embedded in virtually all religions and belief systems. Forms of spiritual mentorship can easily be seen in Hinduism and Buddhism, with the mentor acting as a guru. And in Judaism and Christianity, mentors often take the form of a rabbi, pastor, or elder. However, in both types, a spiritually enlightened mentor acts as a sage to guide the mentee or disciple or religious follower toward enlightenment or a deepened faith. Another mentoring system that originated in the Middle Ages was the medieval guild system, which involved passing along the expertise and art of various crafts and trades through education and apprenticeship from master craftsmen. The mentee was typically an apprentice who worked and learned under the master, who often provided apprentices food and lodging for a contracted period of time in exchange for this training. And this was actually, most of the time, it was about 7 years. And after that time, apprentices could become a journeyman or master craftsmen themselves. Later in the United States, the use of the word mentor was introduced in the latter part of the 18th century. One of the first publications about mentoring was a published book by a woman named Anne Murray, and that's not the singer Anne Murray from the 1970s, but this was in 1778 the book was titled Mentoria, the Young Lady's Instructor. In 1796, a man called the Reverend Weems published its counterpart, a book for the instruction of young men called The Immortal Mentor. In the early 1900s, mentorship became actualized with the birth of the organizations Big Brothers in 1910 and Junior Achievement in 1918. At that time, mentorship was very much focused on young people, until about the 1970s, when our modern conception of mentorship started to take shape, particularly within the workplace, where it was seen as a way to help employees move up through their organizations. This idea continued to grow throughout business and scholarship, allowing the term mentorship to enter the US lexicon in the 1990s and become what we are familiar with today. Now, mentoring is currently a popular way for corporations to try to help with recruiting, succession planning, increasing diversity, and boosting employee retention. Mentoring programs can be very effective if done well, but unfortunately, they often aren't done well and end up being not very effective at all. This can be due to lack of training in designing the program, or that people aren't adequately prepared to be mentors or mentees. In fact, when done poorly, mentoring programs can actually be damaging to people's emotions and psyche and end up working against the goals of the program.
So now we've defined mentorship, have examined some mentoring metaphors, and have learned about its roots. It's time to get you all involved. Take a very brief moment and consider your involvement with mentorship and answer the following question. Oh, wow. Okay. So it's great to see that the majority of you have had a positive experience with mentorship. Now, I do see there are a few of you who have a neutral standpoint or have never even been a mentor or mentee, and that's okay. So there's no right or wrong answer, but as we continue with this webinar, hopefully you'll either be able to approach your current or new mentoring relationship differently and or even consider securing a mentor. So let's go ahead and move forward by examining some of the reciprocal benefits of mentoring. Now, first, I do want to state that mentorship is just not a trend or a craze. It is well researched and it continues to gain attention due to the many benefits that we'll go through here briefly. So first we have enhanced confidence. So mentors are able to boost the confidence of their mentees by nurturing their ability and belief that they can execute job duties, apply for promotions or higher positions, as well as confidently contribute to vital conversations in the workplace. Now, in that same regard, some mentors gain confidence in themselves and their ability to serve others. Hopefully they're practicing servant leadership and are more able to give back in a more positive, meaningful way to others. Increased knowledge is our next benefit. Both the mentor and the mentee are able to gain a fresh perspective based on each other's level of experience. The background of the mentee can provide the mentor with a fresh perspective on how things work now, or being in the know and knowing how to navigate the workplace. Mentors can also assess their ability to effectively guide a mentee and determine their own strengths and weaknesses as it relates to the success of their mentees and their approaches taken. Mentees probably benefit more from the relationship in this aspect by gaining the perspective of the mentor and their experiences, and learn how to navigate and overcome internal politics, sharpen decision-making skills, and even in gaining valuable advice. Next, we have improved communication skills. Both are learning to listen to one another and have a better understanding of what each is saying. And so through that process, they learn to listen to respond. They learn to listen to understand rather than listen to respond. They have to learn to plainly articulate their goals of the mentoring relationship, as well as hold one another accountable. Throughout those efforts, hopefully they're able to give one another positive reinforcement, because it is easier to discuss what's going wrong rather than what's going right. And so through this process, they improve their ability to effectively communicate both aspects of that. Next, we have personal satisfaction. A mentor is able to have a sense of fulfillment by knowing their impact in a mentee's life and how they've aided that mentee in accomplishing their goals. A mentee is challenged and able to come out of their comfort zones and being stretched in order to identify necessary skills that are needed to succeed as they move forward. Additionally, research consistently demonstrates some of the professional benefits moving forward. We have improved professional identity. Mentors and mentees, they enhance their leadership skills, which are essential for growth and development, but also demonstrate the ability to teach and be taught. Upward mobility is another professional benefit. Mentees and mentors most likely will be able to gain progression, promotion, or leadership skill. And you may be thinking, well, how can a mentor who more likely is already in a leadership position gain a higher position? Well, they may be able to learn how to get buy-in from their stakeholders or move up the ladder to the next position. Healthier collaborative efforts is another benefit. Here you have the ability to expand one's network and also gain sponsorship. To close out the benefits, we'll end with greater professional competence. Overall, both are able to gain a fresh perspective, are able to increase their knowledge and confidence, and develop the ability to be emotionally, cognitively, and behaviorally stable and responsive. So we can't discuss the benefits without discussing some of the challenges. One of the challenges is finding a quality mentor. As we know, oil and water do not mix. And so sometimes a mentor and a mentee, they just don't gel or mix together. So it is hard or difficult to find quality mentors throughout this process. It's a matter of chemistry and finding one who just don't fit physical characteristics. Good mentor matching, it depends heavily on important personal and professional dimensions, as well as the context of the mentoring relationship. However, those who meet the mentoring qualities are not always willing to be a mentor. Building trust is another challenge. Experiences can hinder the ability for mentors and mentees to trust one another. Oftentimes, trust is built based on the fact that, hey, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. However, trust is built naturally and should never be taken for granted. Even in uncomfortable situations, trust is garnered when integrity is displayed, in which one's words and their actions all match up with shared values. Deploying empathy and humility. This is the ability to recognize and share feelings, seek understanding, and avoid judgment. It's easier to self-protect rather than open up. And oftentimes mentors and mentees, they find themselves in a shell in order to avoid confrontation and being misunderstood.
Investment in time management is another challenge some people experience. People are busy, so it's easy to give time and attention to the most urgent things in their lives, which sometimes means things like mentoring are given less attention. Another challenge is when one of the pair in the mentoring relationship is more committed and willing to spend the time on mentoring than the other one is. As we know, people give their time and energy to what they value. By not managing one's time in a way to allow real investment and engagement, the mentoring relationship is bound to suffer.
Next, we have unrealistic goals. Oftentimes, we can think that career advancement will happen immediately if we have a mentor, and that the mentoring relationship will automatically be beneficial, and that's not the case. Although mentoring relationships should produce some benefits, setting unrealistic expectations on one another can cause a disconnect and for the relationship to fail.
So sometimes a challenge with mentoring is cross-race and cross-gender mentoring relationships. So people are different than we are, and that can create challenges. Jerica and I have both found this one especially interesting, as we are currently in a cross-race and cross-gender mentoring relationship through Jerica's dissertation work. And I serve on the chair of her dissertation committee, so I'm mentoring her as she goes through this research and writing process. We're excited to see what Jerica learns in her study, but also how it compares to what we learn about ourselves in our own mentoring relationship. So to do this, we're each keeping notes as we communicate, and the shared correspondence we have along the way, we're collecting all that to conduct a self-study as a follow-up to our dissertation research. Now, soon in this presentation, we'll be telling you all about some of the characteristics of effective mentors and mentees and helpful ways to get the most out of mentoring. I wish I could tell you that we know all this through our personal experience working together, but I honestly can't. However, I can say that even though we didn't formally walk through all the steps we're recommending, we've been very intentional along the way to acknowledge and give voice to the potential pitfalls of our own cross-race and cross-gender mentoring relationship, especially those related to power and privilege. Fortunately, we share a commitment to this process and have worked hard to communicate and build trust to help overcome whatever difficulty we may encounter.
So the challenges that I'll share briefly regarding cross-race and cross-gender mentorship aren't necessarily the challenges that Dr. Cole and I have faced. However, they are worthy to note based on research and what literature has to say about it. So one of the challenges is building trust, especially for a white man and a minority, because white men tend to be in leadership roles, they're ideal leaders. It's hard to build trust and a connection between the experiences that one may have in which they differ. Also, the inability to address diversity-related issues is another challenge. Because you come from different backgrounds, it can sometimes be difficult to understand one's viewpoint or their experiences that they're trying to share with you, and some of the things that are considered barriers for them to move forward. Another one is unrealistic advice about work-life balance. This is especially true for male and females. When the male is the mentor and he possibly is telling the female mentor, by any means necessary, get it done. And she's a wife, she's a mother, she's a daughter, and she has other hats that she is currently wearing in her life. And so it's difficult to really take that advice and execute it. Another one is overcoming certain stereotypes. And this is for anyone, male or female, black or white. Just being able to overcome those stereotypes that society has pretty much labeled us as, and being able to go into the mentoring relationship with an open mind. Another one I want to highlight quickly is just the misperception that the mentoring relationship is more than professional. And this is for a male and female type mentoring relationship, where others can possibly view it as a sexual relationship and even see it as it being a favor or sexual harassment and or quid pro quo or something. And so being able to just overcome those challenges when it comes to cross-race and cross-gender mentorship.
So we have another poll for you to take. And so as we've been discussing the challenges, we've established, despite the mutual benefits of mentoring, a successful mentoring relationship is not easy. Which of the following is closest to the most significant challenge you have experienced with mentoring? And if you haven't been in one, then maybe anticipate what you imagine would be the biggest challenge for you. Okay, finding a quality mentor. Yes, and as we're listing a lot of characteristics, and we'll be getting into those a little bit more. It is hard to find people who are willing and then even able to do this well and match yourself. And so, in the time of obviously we just discussed time, how difficult it is to commit to that amount of time and effort to really build that relationship and a trust. So yes, and hopefully we'll be getting into some more of that and working on some solutions too to that. Okay, so one way to do that is to explore some ways to help protect against those challenges before they even show up. According to Zachary and Fischler, the following 7 elements are necessary for effective mentoring relationships. And these are maybe some things that you all can be looking out for as you're anticipating taking on a mentor or evaluating someone who might want to be a mentee under you. So the first is reciprocity, and there needs to be equal engagement for both the mentor and mentee. Each has an active role to play in the relationship and a responsibility for its success. And we know there will be mutual benefits as well. Next is learning. The goal of learning is one component that differentiates mentoring from other types of relationships. This learning goes beyond the simple transference of certain knowledge. It also includes learning about oneself. And ideally, the engagement between the mentor and mentee can help draw this out. Relationship is another element. At its heart, this is a relationship, and any good relationship requires time and effort to grow. One critical aspect of the relationship is mutual trust. Trust helps create an environment where open and honest conversations can take place. It also helps to protect against hurt feelings and false assumptions throughout the mentoring process. This way, if there's a miscommunication or a difficult conversation needs to happen, hopefully the work done on the relationship will help the pair assume the best of each other and allow the difficulty to be resolved in a productive manner. Partnership is the 4th element. I see the partnership of the mentoring relationship related to the first element, which is, if you remember, reciprocity. The old way of doing mentoring was mentor-driven and worked in one direction, from mentor to mentee. In this way, the mentor was only an authority figure passing down knowledge to the mentee, and it was always on the mentor's terms. We now conceive of mentoring as a partnership, where both the mentor and mentee are committed to the relationship and responsible for its success. It also involves collaboration. Related to relationship, collaboration involves both the mentor and mentee working together to define what the mentorship will look like, establish shared agreements, and learn about each other and about both of their needs. Each will bring their own histories and expectations to the relationship. And it is important that they come to a consensus on how this mentorship will look and what will be learned and how the two will interact. This requires the mentee to take an active role and not just passively receive what the mentor is providing. Therefore, collaboration needs to take place around setting learning goals for the mentorship. These mutually defined goals need to be made explicit so the mentor and mentee don't make false assumptions and work toward different learning goals. So it's important that these goals are made together at the beginning of the mentoring, but also periodically revisited to keep the work focused on them. Finally, the focus of mentoring should be on development and growth for the future, which is different than coaching, which is often more oriented to the present. And mentorship is more about developing ways that help someone go from where they are to where they want to be, not merely improving upon current performance. Once the critical elements are in place, and they have all those characteristics that we just mentioned, it's helpful to identify the various phases of the mentoring process in order to make sure that each is getting the attention it deserves. So it doesn't just magically happen, and it's all the same from the beginning to the end, but there are different stages of a mentoring relationship. And here's one way to conceive of it. It's a 4-stage mentoring cycle, and we'll break down that process. The first stage is preparing, which is the getting ready phase. This is where both the mentor and mentee prepare themselves for mentoring. This involves self-reflection about one's motivations and expectations for mentoring, as well as their wants and needs from a mentoring partner. It's also a good time for an honest look inward to see what each would bring into the mentoring relationship and what areas might need some work to help it succeed. It's easy to kind of say, well, this is what I want, but it's a little more difficult to say, what can I do differently, or how can I prepare myself for mentoring? After working on this individually, both should make sure to mutually prepare for this mentoring relationship, setting the stage for the next phase, which is negotiating, or the establishing agreements phase. This is where the possible mentor and mentee share what they have established in the previous phase and come to agreement around what this mentoring relationship will work, how it will work, and what it will look like. Some of this includes logistics, such as the duration of the mentoring, as well as the frequency and manner in which the two will meet. This phase is really important, as the ability to mutually agree on the nature and boundaries of the shared work will help build trust and protect against having unclear or differing expectations. Next comes the enabling stage, or the implementation or work phase. Most of the mentoring relationship will reside in this phase, where work is being done to achieve the mentee's learning and development goals. How this looks will largely depend on what was designed in the previous negotiating phase. Of course, there might need to be some renegotiations on what has been agreed upon, as the two learn what is or isn't working for them. It's at those points where it's critical that there's been some trust established, since asking for change in a relationship has the potential to make the other person feel judged or attacked or insufficient in some way. Ideally, the character and communication skills both possess some of those characteristics we listed earlier, coupled with a trust built throughout the first two phases, will enable the mentor and mentee to make it a productive renegotiation. Hopefully, all of this work will result in the mentee meeting all the established learning and development goals. And the final stage is coming to closure, or the integrations or moving forward phase. Not too many people put a lot of work in planning for the end of a period of mentoring. This can result in the relationship just fizzling out without proper closure or clarity about what was learned, and if it met the mutually defined goals that were established at the beginning. A well-planned closure helps the mentor and mentee to reflect upon the experience and more fully make meaning of it. Ideally, proper closure will catapult the mentee forward with a clear understanding of what was learned and a confidence to handle whatever's next. Plus, it provides a venue for each to show appreciation to the other and to redefine the relationship. That might mean parting ways or continuing the mentoring after renegotiating new learning goals. Either way, this is an important last step to getting the most out of the experience. Now, the end may come at a predefined period of time or whenever the learning goals have been met. Sometimes the end comes sooner than anticipated. This could be due to a life circumstance, like a relocation, or after coming to a realization that the pairing is not a good fit. Even when the mentoring ends prematurely, it's still important to finish well by processing what was learned in the time together and getting closure so both the mentor and mentee can move on. Now that we've discussed the process, it's important to understand the characteristics and qualities of both mentor and mentee. I'll start with what makes an effective mentor, and Jerica will follow with a description of effective mentees. As for mentors, it seems pretty obvious that good mentors have experience and expertise. Otherwise, what would the mentee be learning if the mentor doesn't possess advanced experience and knowledge? I would also add that true experts know the limitations of their knowledge and experience, and that there is always more that could be learned or experienced. In other words, while the mentor should be experienced and knowledgeable, there should also be a humility and an understanding that they don't know everything. An effective mentor should also be goal-oriented, since this is presumably why the mentee wanted mentoring in the first place, to reach some sort of personal or professional goal. If one of the elements of an effective mentoring relationship is mutually defined goals, it's important that the mentor is capable of assisting in the creation of those goals and helping the mentee reach them. And the mentor should also be committed to the mentee's development. That means there should be some intentionality to expose the mentee to new ways of thinking and doing. This can be risky though, so the mentor also needs to be aware of the type of support and protection a mentee might need. A good mentor will also build rapport with the mentee. It simply takes time and some regularity to do this and to establish a trusting relationship. This rapport and trust also helps if something goes wrong, like if one of the pair is in a hurry or is having a difficult day and says something in the wrong way. If that rapport and trust hasn't been built, it might be easy to be irritated, hurt, or offended. Instead, if the right type of work has been put into the relationship, it's much easier to give the other person the benefit of the doubt and to seek more clarity about what the other person was really trying to communicate. Effective mentors are also responsive to the needs of the mentee. This might simply be offering a timely response to an email or a phone call, or it might be carving out the time to be truly present in meetings with the mentee so quality engagement can happen. We all know what non-responsiveness communicates in a relationship. It often makes people feel ignored and undervalued, which would obviously not be good for the mentee. Responsiveness shows a measure of respect and care and can help build that trust. Also, the mentee is in the relationship to learn and develop, which means there may be a bit of uncertainty in the face of the unfamiliar. Many people are not fully aware of their potential and might not believe they can or are ready to take on certain challenges. Some embrace such opportunities and simply go for it. Many people prefer the safety of the familiar and may be more hesitant. A good mentor will be in tune with the mentee and will know when it's time to provide that gentle nudge beyond the mentee's comfort zone. Relatedly, an effective mentor will not only be responsive to opportunities to learn and develop that arise in the mentee's life, but will also be proactive in providing them. This means taking a more active approach instead of a passive one to the mentee's learning and skill development. This also means the mentor will be mindful of the mentee when potential opportunities arise, not just in the times to our meeting or working together. And the next bullet point lists some specific skills a mentor will possess to increase the quality and effectiveness of the mentoring. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go into detail on each one. In fact, I would say they're all probably related to the last bullet point, which indicates the need for effective communication, which is the heart of any relationship. Some people are natural communicators, and others may need to work at it. So I think it is important for the mentor to be self-aware enough to know her communication style and strengths and weaknesses in communicating. By the way, we also expect the same skills from a mentee. With that said, I'll turn things over to Jerica to share the skills effective mentees have.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. So some of these skills are repetitive or what he just presented from mentors. However, it is important that we do examine them as well. So according to Zachary and Fischler, mentees can prepare themselves for mentoring relationships by understanding certain skills, how they impact the mentoring process, and their competency level with each. So let's review the skills that I have for you guys. First, giving and receiving feedback. This is very important because you need to be able to speak up and ask for guidance for some insight, advice, and even feedback, but also being able to receive it in the manner in which it was given. Don't be so quick to judge your mentor or even be defensive based on the comments or the feedback that he or she is providing. However, in return, if your needs aren't being met, or if you feel as though the relationship is not beneficial, have the confidence in yourself to communicate this to the mentor and provide possible solutions and state what you would like to see moving forward. Self-directed learning is another skill. You want to take ownership in your desire to learn and grow, develop, and even gain access. Communicate your goals to your mentor and formulate an action plan with specified dates. This will hold you and your mentor accountable. Building relationships. Time is of the essence, and building a relationship does not happen overnight. Allow it to grow naturally and understand the stages that Dr. Cole just presented, the stages that it takes to build a lasting relationship. Communication, being honest and checking for understanding. Paraphrase the information that's being conveyed to you so that you can ensure you are receiving and interpreting it correctly. Never assume your mentor is aware of your needs and can magically make things happen. Avoid being passive aggressive, but say what you mean and mean what you say. Also, commit to the confidentiality of your discussions with your mentors. Moving forward, we have goal setting. I'll go into more detail about this shortly, but simply put, mentees must be smart about their goals and what they desire. Goals should be determined by the mentee, not by the mentor. However, your mentor can help clarify your goals, but they should not select your goals for you. Effective listening is another one. Mentees should not only receive the information that is conveyed to them, but they must also comprehend and decipher meaning from the messages that's being sent. As an active participant in the mentoring relationship, mentees need to also be active listeners. We need to be able to listen with our whole body, minimizing distractions and providing our mentors with our undivided attention, maintaining eye contact, asking questions for clarity, but more importantly, paying attention to what is unsaid. Follow through is another skill. Actions do speak louder than words, so it's imperative that mentees execute the plan in order to reach their goals and to avoid compromising the trust that has been built. Now, although things do not always work out according to plan, keeping the lines of communication open and honest will still demonstrate the mentee's commitment to accomplishing their goals. It's okay to evaluate and rewrite the plan, but be sure to speak and act with consistency. Reflection. Being able to take certain moments and self-reflect is a valuable skill mentees should possess. It will progress the relationship at a more positive rate if mentees are able to consider what is and is not working, their role and contributions thus far, and what further action should be taken to move the relationship forward. Initiative. So for all of you who are a mentee, I have a question for you. Are you the driver or are you the passenger? Hopefully, you stated you're the driver. As a mentee, you are responsible for the trajectory of the relationship and how successful it is and will be. No living being can read the mind of another living being. Mentors do not possess a superpower in which they can magically determine what the needs of the mentees are. As the driver of the mentoring relationship, stepping up to the plate and asking for what you need will yield a sustaining learning experience. Lastly, we have valuing differences. Mentees will not always agree with their mentors and vice versa. However, there is beauty in the controversy when respect is at the forefront. I'll say that again. There is beauty in controversy when respect is at the forefront. So many differences can present themselves, such as generational, gender, ethnic, and even learning styles. Having an open mind and being respectful of the differences that are present will help the mentee and the mentor develop a deeper understanding and more meaningful relationship. Earlier, I stated that goals should be determined by the mentees and the mentors. This places a sense of ownership and follow through on the mentee. To ensure goals are clear and attainable and that mentees are able to focus on a bigger goal, smaller goals should be set that lead up to the big picture. This means begin with the end in mind. What will most likely work best are SMART goals, which, according to Zachary and Fischler, frame and define the focus of the work to be done, eliminate ambiguity, provide a framework for gauging progress and measuring success, ground the learning, and set a context for mentoring. So, what is a SMART goal? A SMART goal is specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, timely. Constructing productive SMART goals is a steady process that requires time and transparent communication. In order for a mentee to be properly guided, mentees must build the trust that is needed in order to share what may be their most intimate thoughts regarding their career path, leadership capability, advancement, and more importantly, what they hope to get out of the relationship. Most goals usually start with broad statements, but with the help of a mentor, these goals can move from being general to more precise. It will take several conversations with the mentor in order to refine the mentee's thinking and clarify what needs to be accomplished. So creating SMART goals will entail the following things to think about as a mentee. Specific. What is it that I'm trying to accomplish and why? There must be purpose behind the goal or goals that you're setting. Measurable. How will I know I'm reaching or have met my goal? Tracking the progression of a goal is highly important. Action-oriented. What concrete things will I be able to do as a direct result of accomplishing these learning goals? Challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone in order to experience real change. In order to have change, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Realistic. Are my goals achievable? Am I out of my league or trying to reach the impossible? Or even, am I moving too fast? Oftentimes, one can achieve anything they put their mind to. However, moving too fast and rushing the process can damage the learning process and even hinder the mentee from accomplishing their goal. Timely. What is the time frame for accomplishing my goal? What should I accomplish today, in a week, a month, 6 months, even a year? Time management is key, and having a deadline will allow the mentee to focus on long-term goals by reaching the short-term goals. So we have a few mentorship recommendations that hopefully you all can take and be able to apply as you either continue your mentoring relationship or even go about selecting one. So first, selectivity matters. Selecting a mentor or even a mentee is like investing. Mentors and mentees are investing time, energy, trust, and resources. A mentor cannot agree to guide everyone, and a mentee just can't ask anyone to guide them. Think about the benefits and the drawbacks that come with working with the individual as a mentor or mentee. Only considering the obvious, such as physical characteristics that are similar and their current position, can diminish the enjoyment of a mentoring relationship. This can result in a hefty price, such as wasted time, manipulation, and even one's reputation. Communication skills, emotional stability, ambition, initiative, intelligence, and loyalty are important traits that should supersede a label and the physical characteristics. Research has shown that mentoring relationships have been successful for those who have been able to secure a mentor based on similarities such as race and gender. However, I want to challenge all of you to look beyond the surface and select mentors who can create networking opportunities, provide sponsorship, transfer vital knowledge based on experience, and select a mentor who is or has served in the desired career position. Matching characteristics, they should include work ethic, drive, grit, social skills, personality traits, communication styles, personal values, and career trajectory. Now, don't get me wrong, it is nice to find a mentor who you can relate to based on same race, same gender. However, depending on what your overall goal is, you have to get out of your comfort zone and away from what's familiar so that you can enhance your knowledge and experience based on your connection and relationship with someone else. Now, mentors are charged with helping mentees understand and accept that there are no shortcuts. As stated by Johnson and Ridley, unearthing the dream is not about imposing your vision onto mentees, but discerning and calling forth to reality what lies within them. As an attentive listener, mentors can give voice to glimpses of the dream and gently unearth and decipher the mentee's ideal self and career dream. The ideal self is how a mentee sees themselves in a more vulnerable inner form. For some, the dream is associated with the ideal self and may be hard to put into words, which is why it's important for mentors to provide persistent doses of affirmation and encouragement. To truly unearth the dream and make it a reality, mentors should reject perfectionism and promote excellence. So mentors must set high expectations and communicate them clearly. Additionally, they should model the same excellence and demonstrate confidence in the mentee's ability to meet and exceed their expectations. Mentors should never overwhelm their mentees by demanding perfectionism. Instead, detect and refute it and provide a vision of the mentee as talented, worthy, competent, and capable of high achievement. Creating boundaries is another skill. Now, it's easier to identify how to avoid this, so let's go ahead and dive into it. To avoid overstepping boundaries, mentors must clarify relationship boundaries, including issues of confidentiality, appropriate context of interaction, frequency of contact, channels of communication, rules governing socializing, and strategies for handling uncomfortable dual roles, such as one who is a mentor and your supervisor. It is important that both the mentor and the mentee refuse to allow the mentoring relationship to become romantic or even sexual. Research shows that mentees who become sexually involved with their mentors become angrier and regretful as time goes on. If a mentoring relationship is sexualized, I believe both parties, especially the mentor, should immediately terminate it and seek consultation and evaluate the wisdom of working with mentees until his or her ethical judgment and respect for professional boundaries have been restored. Now, in most cases, the benefits outweigh the risk. However, discussing the risk will possibly eliminate them early on when mentees are informed. By discussing the risk early in the relationship, a mentee can decide if they want to commit to the mentoring relationship or can prepare them for prevention. Some of the risks include animosity, jealousy, loss of time, lack of advancement, and failing to meet the expectations. Good mentoring, however, will ensure growth and will change your relationship. However, you need to be able to welcome change and accept the endings. Mentors must recognize that development and independence in mentees will require them to tolerate some sadness and adjustments. Mentees will need different things from their mentor at each phase of the relationship. To truly guide mentees through difficult times, mentors should celebrate each transition from one phase to the next. A healthy mentoring relationship will appreciate the seasons of mentoring relationships. Mentors accept endings once the relationship has run its course and facilitate closure when it's time for the mentee to function independently and bring awareness to the mentee that the ending phase is hopefully a sign of success and that the mentee is ready to carry out the knowledge and skills he or she has learned.
So I know we're running long, but as we come to the end of our presentation, this is the last slide of our content, so rest assured. Let me leave you with a few summary comments of what we covered this afternoon. First, mentorship has been around for a long time and understood in many different ways, often using metaphors to understand it. It might be good to look at what metaphor you are using in thinking about mentorship and how that might shape your personal expectations of it. We've also learned that mentorship can be both beneficial for both the mentor and mentee. This mutual benefit can be maximized after putting in the necessary work throughout the process, first on oneself and then collectively. Next, fully realizing these mentorship benefits and protecting against various challenges takes intentionality, hard work, good communication, trust, and commitment. If you're thinking about getting involved in a mentoring relationship, it would be good to be aware of what it takes if you're willing and able to fully engage in this way. And finally, good mentorship involves having a plan. That plan should be made collaboratively with both the mentor and mentee taking ownership of the planning process. Ultimately, this means taking personal responsibility for one's own role in the mentoring relationship. So to conclude, let me return to the epic poem, The Odyssey. In the words of Harvard classical scholar Gregory Nagy from an interview he gave to the Atlantic magazine a few years ago, he said, "In the Greek of the Odyssey, a mentor is someone who instills a heroic mentality in someone. That's exactly what Athena, as the goddess of intelligence, does in her relationship with Telemachus. She intervenes in his life, which is very misdirected at the time, when he's not sure about anything. What Athena succeeds in doing as mentor is connecting the thinking of the young man with the realities of the heroic legacy of not only his father, but of all his ancestors, male and female. This relationship literally connects the mind of Athena with the mind of Telemachus. There's real transfer of thought from one to the other, and that transference is embodied by mentor." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian and Jerica. And we will open up for Q&A shortly. And while you're thinking of questions, you will see a link posted in the chat for anyone interested in learning about more on our online degree programs. And you will receive an email within the next 24 hours with a recording of today's session as well. That follow-up email will also include a brief survey, and we would definitely appreciate your feedback as we continue these webinars in the future. If you have participated in this survey in the past, please continue to do so. We've also added a new question for desired future topics. So we'd love to hear from you. If there's a webinar topic you'd like to see in the future, we can definitely try our best to make that happen. We would also like to invite you to ACU Online's Open House webinar next week on Thursday, February 13th at 6:30 p.m. to learn more about the online undergraduate and graduate programs offered at ACU Online. We're also posting a registration link in the chat for this event. Idea Lab's next scheduled webinar will be on April 2nd with Dr. Kippy Fleming on Identity, Emotion, and Power, the Conflict Triad. Finally, if you do have further questions, feel free to email us at idealab@acu.edu. And we want to sincerely thank everyone for joining us, and a special thank you to Dr. Cole and Professor Nickerson for sharing your knowledge with us today. And we will open it up for Q&A, so feel free to type your questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom window. So Brian and Jerica, if you can see that first question, it looks like from Cecilia. She says, what is the difference between mentoring and counseling?
Sorry, I don't know that I can see that question, but yeah, well, I mean, that depends on what you mean by counseling, I guess. I mean, there's the clinical sense, which obviously is a very specific way of going about giving guidance to somebody. But well, I've never thought about like comparing the two.
I would state, based on my knowledge of what mentorship is and what counseling is, I would assume that mentoring is an intentional relationship where you are seeking guidance just to be able to navigate and move about professionally or even personally. Whereas in counseling, I see it more so as there is a specific issue or problem that you're trying to tackle or overcome. And so you're seeking a counselor, someone who can help you find the answers. Whereas with a mentor, you're able to kind of find your way yourself.
Yeah, and I would also add that, you know, a counselor wouldn't necessarily be someone with the expertise or experience within the area that the person would want to be mentored. A counselor could be, you know, anyone who just has an expertise in leading that person along on their journey. You know, a mentorship would be someone who has that expertise and experience that you can kind of learn from them directly, instead of what Jerica mentioned is the counselor letting them kind of find their own way with the counseling.
Perfect. And then I posted one more question in the chat as well, from Crystal Lee. She says she's a spiritual mentor for Christian women and not interested in the life coach designation. Are there mentor certification programs in the context of Christian mentoring? A plethora of Christian life coaching programs exist.
I know a lot of Christian mentoring programs, but I am not aware of certification, Christian certification mentoring programs. I don't know if you are, Jerica.
No, I'm not. I know more life coaching Christian programs than mentoring. Sounds like a good idea to start one, though.
There you go.
There might be some out there. I'm just not aware of any.
If it doesn't exist, create it, right? All right. Well, I think that wraps up our questions. And of course, we are running over a little bit. So thank you, those of you that stayed on with us. To respect everyone's time, we will go ahead and conclude today's session. So if you have further questions, please email us or visit our website at acu.edu/online or acuidealab.com. Thank you again for joining us today at ACU ID Lab, and we hope you have a blessed day.